Dricus Du Plessis, Israel Adesanya. What do you think of this fight, Anthony?
Man, I mean, I don't think that there's any question that Izzy's the cleaner, more technical striker. Dricus is pretty efficient, though, and he's pretty effective. And I think a lot of us were a little bit critical of his conditioning and his cardio. He went 5 hard with Sean Strickland, and that's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And from experience, I know how hard that is. So I think that he's got those issues after he had the nose surgery. I think everyone kind of blew it off like, oh yeah, whatever. It's, he's just making excuses for getting tired, but he didn't, he seemed to push it pretty hard. He's more physical than Izzy is. And I think that that's going to create some problems if Izzy can't keep him on the outside. But if the best version of Izzy shows up, it's going to be a tough night for Dricus.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Izzy lost the belt by being, I'm going to say, complacent against Sean Strickland. He wasn't himself. He was flat-footed. He was lackluster. There wasn't much output. I mean, Sean Strickland beat the piss out of him fair and square, but I think Izzy will come back now with a fire and looking to prove a point.
Especially because he doesn't like him.
Well, he doesn't like him. Yeah, there's all of that stuff. So there's bragging rights and there's pride and there's a whole African angle as well. But mainly for Izzy, he wants to be the champion again. His ego has been damaged. You're defending the belt. You're talking about becoming the greatest middleweight of all time. That's still Anderson Silva. He defended the belt 5 times. It feels like a lot longer than that, but defended it many times. And now the division's moving on without him. So that's going to piss him off. So he's going to push himself. Of course, he fought a lot. The schedule was kind of insane. It really was. And maybe got a little flat. But against Dricus Du Plessis, I just think on paper it's a really tough matchup because Dricus always goes forward. Yeah. He's hyper aggressive the whole time. That's what you want to do against someone like Izzy. You want to crowd the kicker. Against Anderson Silva, that was my game plan. That should always be the game plan. And that, excuse me, is how Dricus fights anyway. Yeah. He always goes forward. He's always aggressive. He swings unconventional shots.
And he'll wrestle.
And he can blend in the takedowns perfectly. So, I do think this is a very, very tough match for Israel Adesanya.
I 100% agree. I think this is going to be one of his tougher stylistic matchups because Dricus can do it all, and he does blend between wrestling and striking to wrestling, and he's seemingly really strong. The way that people kind of react when he starts grabbing them, and that's one thing Strickland said, that he was unnaturally strong. He wasn't quite prepared for the strength initially. I think it's what kind of Sean got that slow start at the beginning and was, sometimes someone shoots a takedown and you kind of ease into the defense, like you stop the first attempt and you can kind of fight hands as you're back into the fence, turn off and break. And I think that's what Sean expected to do. And then as the fight wore on, he realized right away, I got to separate and get this guy off me because he's too strong to let him hold on to me.
Yeah. I want to know your prediction though, Anthony, because you don't do Thursday's show. So I want to know that in just a second. I think with the bad blood, I think Izzy's going to go forward. And I think that's his best bet. Laying back, being the counter striker, I don't think is the best approach against Dricus. I think Dricus is being smart. Because he's not taking matchups whenever the UFC have kind of said, we want you to go now, because he's like, listen, he did that going up as a contender. When you become the champion, you've earned the right then to be a little bit more business-like with your decisions. Right. But I think he's going to come in phenomenal shape. The nose being fixed definitely has improved his cardio, but the strength, the takedowns, the unconventional shots, everyone's saying that Dricus is bad. I just don't get that narrative. I don't understand that one little bit.
No, I don't think he's bad. The one thing that I've always said is that it doesn't look right. Like it looks very different than, a conventional MMA fighter, but it's effective. And I think that some of us have picked against him. I think we've said, okay, well, in our brains and our minds, when we watch this, 1 + 1 = 2, and that's how this is supposed to work. But I just think that it looks different the way that he does it. And so I think some of us as complete analysts and been doing and watching fights a certain way, I think it throws us off. So when we say it doesn't look right, I think sometimes in our brains it goes, well, he's doing that wrong. Maybe it's not necessarily wrong. We need to adjust how we look at the way that he fights.
Yeah, well, it's certainly effective and it's working for him. I would liken his style very similar to one Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson, when you look at Dan Henderson, he's garbage. Yeah. He's not a pretty striker, but he's goddamn effective, and that is a fact. And I know that firsthand. Ridiculous knockout power, had a legendary career, so I do think there's definite similarities there with the kind of striking style. Anyway, all of that aside, who's winning the fight, Anthony? Who's the champion, according to you, Saturday night when the dust settles?
Because I'm
on the fence.
I'm trying not to sit on the fence because I am working with events.
I won't allow it.
I have to give a prediction anyways. I like Izzy a lot. So as much as my bias leans towards Israel, I think it's Dricus. I do. I just think with his physicality, I don't think he's going to give Izzy enough room to work. Not if he's smart. And he seems to have a pretty good chin. And I just cannot get past what he did to Whitaker because I'm such a Whitaker mark. I'm such just a fanboy for Whitaker. I can't help it. I'm just such a fan of that guy. And what he did to Whitaker was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of fun, this weekend, it is UFC 305. That's going to be fun. Dricus Du Plessis, he was saying, Harrington, give me the lowdown on this. He believes that the next person, should he be victorious, will be the winner of Khamzat versus Robert Whitaker, not Sean Strickland.
Yeah, I believe the quote was the winner of Khamzat versus Whitaker is going to get the next title shot. If Sean Strickland wants to wait, he's going to be waiting quite a long time.
We have spoke about this numerous times, but this is another development in it. Sean isn't going to like that.
No.
Who did he just beat? Oh, Costa,
yeah.
Just beat Paulo Costa. Feels now that he should get a title fight. What do you think about that? I don't think it's smart. Because if Whitaker beats Khamzat, I think he's got more of a case. If Khamzat beats Whitaker, undefeated, all the momentum, there's a really good potential that it's Khamzat next.
If Khamzat wins, I think it's definitely Khamzat Chimaev. If Whitaker wins, Sean has a little better of a case because they were in a really close fight, and Whitaker and Dricus really wasn't that close. So, yeah, if I was Sean, I wouldn't want to wait and let other people leave my destiny in someone else's hands. But he's doing it the way that he feels is right, and I can't knock him for that. I just think that if Khamzat wins, it's going to be a tough one. But if I'm Dricus, I probably don't want to fight Sean Strickland again either. Not because he feels like he can't beat him or whatever, but he's been in there with him one time, and it probably wasn't that much fun. So
I don't know if it's necessarily that. He just wants to move on and clean out the division, probably. I don't think it's necessarily that he's ducking.
No, I don't think he's done.
Khamzat on paper's a tough fight. Whitaker's a tough fight, even though he's beaten him already. But Khamzat is...
Have you ever beaten anybody? You ever beaten someone and then you beat them, but it's not something you want to do twice?
100%.
There's people I've beaten. We're like, yeah, I would fight that guy again. But there's people that I've beaten. We're like, ugh.
Oh yeah,
I won, but I didn't like that.
And the ones that you would do again are very simple. They're the ones where you walk in, you smoke them, you look like the man, you get the submission or the knockout. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You don't have a scratch on you. That was the easiest fight of your life. And you're like, boom, let's go again. Yeah. The ones that you don't necessarily want to do again is where you get beat up a little bit, like Matt Hamill. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Not much of a name, but he was whooping my ass for half the fight. I was like, that was a hard day's work.
That sucks. And I just feel like... not that I don't think Dricus would fight him if that was the offer, but if he had to choose, the other fights are really hard too, but I know exactly how bad that one's going to suck. Yeah. So I'll take my chances with the other one.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't know about Khamzat though. How reliable is it? If he was to fight and become the champion, if he was to fight and become the champion, how regularly could he be defending the belt?
Yeah,
because that has been an issue.
Yeah, he's dealing with some health issues at times. Was it Dana?
Travel issue, it seems.
Yeah, he's got some. I think he has some travel restrictions potentially. I'm not sure about that. That's how it seems. I remember. I think Dana said something recently. It's like when he starts cutting weight is when a lot of these health problems pop up. It's when he starts getting close to fight weight or about to cut. He just ends up really sick, and that's tough.
He's not the most disciplined, though, from what I'm led to believe. People close to the situation, like, they have to stay on him big time. Yeah, he's always like sneaking in candy bars. Like they'll open his drawer and he's got like 20 candy bars there, and they're like, what are you doing? You make him wait in 2 weeks and you're like having 5 candy bars in bed.